Deirdre, let's super. Okay, we have a packed agenda, and I hope everybody got a copy. If not, the way we're structured is we're going to do the Beacon Hill Council updates at the front end for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to catch up on old business, and then we're going to have new business come in around 7:15. So we have 4 topics that we're going to do catch up on and updates on what the Beacon Hill Council has been doing. So Deirdre Curl is our vice chair, and she's going to give us a briefing on our participation with the Seattle Districting Commission. Go ahead, please, Deirdre.
Okay. So raise your hand if you knew that Seattle is in the process of redistricting. Okay, most of you know about this. So we attended a meeting about the redistricting that was held at Centro del Raza, and these meetings are being held around the city. And so what this city is proposing is kind of splitting up District 2 and combining some of it with District 1, because District 1 has lost population. And I'm not sure if District 2 has gained population, but anyways, it's uneven. So as many of you know, District 2, the one that we're in, goes from Soto to Chinatown International District, east of the Duwamish, follows all the way down Beacon Hill, and goes all the way to like Rainier Beach, and covers up to Lake Washington. So some of the proposals are that they want to separate the Central District from, not the Central District, I'm sorry, the International District from District 2 and put it with another district. And they're also talking about the possibility of moving that area west of Jefferson Park over to District 1, joining West Seattle, and moving Georgetown to West Seattle. So the meetings that we attended, there was a lot of opposition to splitting us up like that. So we are talking about how we're going to be responding to the city. The city would like us, we already sent a letter to them opposing this. The city would like us to work with their map app about how we might redistribute the districts. And we're talking about other local organizations who are fighting these changes and working on a positive solution as well. Maria, anything else I should add?
Yes, so going back to just some basic goals, the goal of the redistricting post-census is to be able to divide the districts so that we have even numbers, approximately around 103,000 residents per each district. So the principles behind it is that we have to stay within the given lines to be able to push it out. We're doing a community of interest. So our logic basically is that we have a strong community of interest with Chinatown International District, because close to 50% of our BIPOC population is Asians, and that we have a community of interest in advocating for environmental justice, because one of the proposals is to cut out Middle Beacon Hill and have that join District 1. So we're posting the letter of principles that we're supporting online. We're also, we've said actively to Chinatown International District and to the leaders over at Central District that we support what they would want, because for the Central District, they have worked really hard to reclaim some sense of African-American historical legacy in terms of being a neighborhood, and to get them bifurcated would reduce the reclaim power that they've been working on. And of course, we want to be able to really work this issue through. So it's time limited in terms of when we can give input. And then there's going to be new maps drawn that will be available in the fall. And then it's going to get finalized by November. So we need to make sure we give input to that. We're about 40,000 now. The new census data shows Beacon Hill has grown. We used to be 32 at the beginning of the decade, and then we saw 35. So now we're at 40. And that's about 40% roughly of the District 2. Deirdre, if anybody wants to weigh in, just basically email us in Beacon Hill Council. We are posting our letters so that it's transparent to you guys what our thinking is. Okay, any questions, please, or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you, Deirdre. Let's give you a hand for your reporting back. Yes, and we have been working on a wonderful project to honor Mr. Bill Wright Jr., who broke the ceiling in terms of golf for African American accomplishment. So Mark Solomon is the chair of that committee. And Mark, you ready to give us a briefing?
Yes, good evening again. This is going to be a very short update. Basically, the committee, when we last met, decided or realized that there was a critical step in this whole process that we had not done yet. And that was actually getting in touch with the Bill Wright Jr. family to get their blessing and sign off on doing this project. So, we've got something drafted in terms of a flyer, something that can go on our website, on the Beacon Hill Facebook page. Things are ready to go, but we don't want to launch without first getting in touch with the family and getting their blessing to proceed. Because the last thing we want to do is put this stuff out there and have them go, what? Hey, what are you doing? So that's where we stand right now. So I've been in touch with Rudy at First State to get a contact for Bill Wright Jr.'s widow and his family. So once I get that and we make contact, then we can actually go ahead and launch. So our timelines may be altered a little bit, but we're still excited and moving forward with the project. So,
Mark, can you speak with the partnerships that you've made inroads within the golfing community as well?
Yes, so we've been working with First State, First Tee. We also have a connection with the Boeing Classic golf tournament, so they're definitely ready to come on board. And Kathy, I may be forgetting some other folks. I know we've talked about Redbird, getting Premier Golf, also the organization that actually owns and operates Premier, and getting them on board, and they're pretty excited about moving forward on this as well. So did I miss anyone, Kathy?
The two high schools, Cleveland High School golf team, or Cleveland High School and Franklin High School as well, are very supportive and willing to participate as well. And the U.S. Golf Association wants to, once everything is in motion, wants to send out an email to all of their members throughout the United States, letting them know about this honor, because they're very supportive and want to be involved.
Yeah. So once we have, like I said, the blessing from the family, we're going to be reaching out to get something scheduled with the Parks Commission to move forward about doing a presentation and a pitch to them, to get this done.
Well, fantastic work, Kathy, Mark. Thank you so much. We'll hear about that critical step. It's such a special thing for our Beacon Hill community to honor Bill Wright Jr. And next item is an invitation to the Seattle Construction Development, SCDI, Seattle Construction Development. It should be permitting part of it. Anyway, Wednesday at 5 o'clock, there's going to be a hearing on the 17th and Walker developments. So the neighbors at the north end have put in, about 52 of them have commented on 2 different properties on 17 and Walker. Those 2 lots are mostly trees right now, and there's going to be a development going in. And the majority of the comments are around needing the trees to filtrate air and noise pollution, as well as needing trees to have park. So that, because the kids don't have, hardly any air, place to go play in that area in terms of a children's park. So I think we were able to help by writing a letter to support the neighbors and request a hearing. So that'll be tomorrow. Some of the discussions I've had with the neighbors is that the Green New Deal is a new law that talks about climate and equity resiliency. So we're a green desert in terms of having low tree canopy. So that's really important to the neighbors on the north. And on the south, the Noji Gardens, we're going to be trying to go for a hearing also, because they're talking about cutting 100 trees down there. So if you have the time, please feel free to comment on it, or if you can email us, I can send the link out to you guys, or we can post it on the website actually. Okay, and the last update item we have is Megan Slade, who is an advocate who's on our board, and an advocate for families and youth. Megan, would you give us an update on the EPA Clean Bus Grant?
Sure. Could I just clarify the meeting? I think I heard you say it's tomorrow, but I also heard you say the 17th. Which one is it?
The property address is 17th and Walker.
Okay.
It is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Okay.
5 o'clock.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Maria had her eyes out and found that there is a EPA grant that will pay to replace diesel buses with electric buses. Some of the ways that affects Beacon Hill, one is many of our students are riding those buses, and the diesel fuels get trapped inside the bus, and their fumes are actually higher inside versus outside. Also, a number of those buses, the majority are parked down here on the south end, so they're going up and down I-5 and contributing to the air pollution that we're experiencing. So we crafted a letter to the superintendent and our district Director Hershey, asking for them to apply, or we could support them in figuring a way to apply for those buses, any funds that would go towards that. Anything that I missed, Maria, that you want to add to that?
So we're going to be bold as, representing residents and parents. We're actually asking Seattle Public Schools to purchase the buses, because the bus company is a private company, and only nonprofits and schools or public schools are eligible for the EPA grant. So what we know is that in the past, the Seattle Public Schools have run their own bus fleet. And since then, they've been contracting out, but they can own the buses and still contract out the operations to a private company, or maybe even Metro. So we think this is a good move. This will really help air and noise pollution, which has respiratory impacts on our kids and cardio impacts regarding the noise. So it's going to be helpful. We're waiting to get feedback from our PTAs, where we work with 4 of the PTAs. And hopefully we'll get that by Wednesday or Thursday, and then we'll get the letter out. This is very consistent what Seattle Public Schools is doing about clean environment, clean fuel. So it won't be a stretch in that way. Okay, I'm looking around to see if there's any questions on the updates. Because if not, we're going to move on to the old business. Yeah, I'm also looking at the chat box. Let's see. There's one person. We'll announce him towards the end of the meeting so that we can continue with our agenda. So I'm looking around, not seeing anything else. We'll continue. The old business. Okay, guys, we have two items. The proposed bike trail for the north leg, there was a lot of feedback in the May meeting. So SDOT basically said that they're going to research basically what the community is saying. There's a group of neighbors up on the 15th Avenue area that were identifying safety issues for the people living there, as well as the businesses that were not contacted. So SDOT, which is Seattle Department of Transportation, promised to do more of the outreach and also to do what we call radiative research, which is even though the bike lane is going to take away parking on 15th Avenue, they need to look at 14th and 13th and on the other side, 16th and 17th, because people will start parking into those residential areas. So they'll be back in July and they're on there. And I'm looking around to see if KL Shannon is here. I'm not seeing her. So I'm going to go ahead and give an update on the item here on the agenda. There's a Seattle Greenways that is a very good advocate for the biking community. And they have a Black Lives Matter project that KL is staffing. And it's Whose Streets, Our Streets. And they're talking about safety. This is a core team of about 9 people of BIPOC people who want to talk to community. And so I wanted to check in with you guys if we can do a session with them. I've known KL for maybe 30 years. She's been a community organizer way back with Larry Gossett. And I just, have high regard for her work. So I think it'll be an authentic listening session in terms of what our needs are. I see a heart from Evelyn. Thank you. So that tells us that you know KL and have good faith. Same with Megan. So, and Cliff, you know KL also. All right, with that, for those who
I know KL very well. I was on the NAACP board with her for many, many years, and also the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee with her. So I know KL very well.
Great. I know you're heavily involved in the South Beacon Hill bike path that's going to get crafted in a while. I'm looking to you guys to see, are you comfortable engaging with Seattle Greenways, Whose Streets, Our Streets project to give input on what people of color want? And so I'm just going through the screen. I see nods from our community folks. There's a couple of organizers on the north part. Are you guys comfortable engaging with Seattle Greenways? Okay. Middle Beacon Hill, I'm seeing thumbs up, and South Beacon Hill. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Okay, it's a go. And I'll work with her if we're going to have a special meeting so that there's time. She also said that they're going to offer in person as well as by Zoom. And the in-person, they have childcare that they'll be providing and some refreshments or a meal, depending on the time that we do it, because they realize for working people, after dinner time or during dinner time, you have your kids. So they're going to help out and do accommodations. Okay, thanks everybody. I got that as a yes on my notes. Just want to make sure I record it. Okay, the next item is the 3 schools in our community in Beacon Hill are going through either new construction or upgrading or revamping. And we have Henry Yates, who is their community engagement coordinator. And I think we're about 6:52. So we have, I'd say if you guys needed a few more minutes, we can go from 15 to 20 minutes on this. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Henry. And if you can introduce your team, that would be great.
Okay, happy to do that. Thank you, Maria, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk with you about what we're what we're doing in the neighborhood. Again, Henry Yates, and I am the community coordinator, diversity and inclusion lead for Cornerstone Construction. I have a consulting business, and this is the sort of thing that I do. I am also your neighbor. I live over the hill and in Mount Baker, and have been there for about 25 years. It's kind of funny, you know, I've been here long enough that when I go to the Safeway on Rainier and I have an issue, you know, I'm returning something, or I see a problem in the parking lot, I'm looking for Cliff. You know, so yeah, I've been here for a while. So the projects that we're going to talk about, and Brian Gormley will give you more detail on them, are several schools in Beacon Hill. The company that Brian works for and that I'm working for is Cornerstone Construction. We're a local Washington State company, and we specialize in building schools. We are actually going to be in your neighborhood for about 3 years, up until about June 2025, working on several schools. What we'd like to do is talk with you about the construction side of what we're doing, but we also want to talk with you about the community side and some things that we're doing in the neighborhood with the kids and that sort of thing. So what I'd like to do is introduce Brian. He is a vice president at Cornerstone Construction, and he is in charge of all of the schools that are being either rebuilt or constructed in the Beacon Hill area. Before I introduce him, I just want to talk with you for a minute about our community team. You see me there in the middle, smiling face. That's I think one of my that's my high school photo there. And you see Vicki Puckett. Vicki is a longtime educator and is the diversity and inclusion outreach coordinator for Cornerstone. And then you have Brian, who is vice president and the person that's actually in charge of the building of the school. So with no further ado, let me turn it over to Brian. And thank you for allowing us to present to you.
Great. Well, thanks, Henry. Can everybody see? You should be seeing a slideshow. Are you guys able to see that? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Henry, for that introduction. Again, I'm Brian Gormley with Cornerstone, Vice President. You know, we do a lot of school projects, and it's really important for us as a primary school builder to you know, be a good neighbor and you know, try to make an impact in a positive way in the communities that we're working in. And it just so happens that with Seattle Public Schools, we're actually working on 3 different projects in your community. And so we're very thankful for the opportunity to come in and share some information about these projects, some of the opportunities that are available on these projects, both on the business side and on the employment side. You know, it's really important as a builder and with Seattle Public Schools to maximize, you know, the opportunities available to the local minority and women-owned businesses, and to create diversity in the workforce on the projects in your community. The first thing I wanted to start with is just a little bit of a different topic, but what's really important to us when we are building in neighborhoods is being a good neighbor. We have a few items you can see on the screen here, but we really do value that. As I said, we're primarily a school builder, so it's you know, our future projects are based on not only how we do for our school districts, you know, the architects and the design teams, but also for the communities, because the communities are the ones that pass the bonds, and the bonds are the reason that we're able to build schools. And so it's important that we're very cognizant of that. So good planning with traffic control. All of our superintendents are primary school builders too, so they understand how to work in neighborhoods. We understand keeping dust down is a priority, particularly in the summer. And then also communicating with the neighbors, making sure that when we're going to do something that has a significant impact to the local community, we're letting everybody know about it. So next, I wanted to just spend a few minutes and talk about opportunities that are available on these projects. I should have this number off the top of my head, but we're probably close to $200 million, I think, worth of work between the three projects in Beacon Hill. And so we really break things down into four major categories of opportunities. And just so everybody knows, don't worry about taking notes. I'm going to send this to the right person, and it can get distributed or be made available to everybody. But we have our major subcontracts. That's the larger scopes of work, as you can see with the list that are available. All the items that you see on that list would be available on one of these three projects that we're doing. You know, the minor ones or smaller ones, and there's some opportunities there for emerging businesses and smaller businesses that we can scale the way that we package the work to make it available for contractors that are of that size. And then we have supply only packages. And then the last category is miscellaneous general services. You know, as I said, these are $200 million projects, or in total, significant amount of construction going on in your community. And so there's all kinds of things that we need to help service those projects. You know, I won't go through the list here, but it ranges from, you know, a good food truck makes a job site happy. So if there's anybody that knows where I could find one of those, let me know. And then, you know, just all kinds of services that we're, you know, what we try to do with Vicki and Henry's help and the commitment from Cornerstone is we really want to draw first from the local community and the, you know, minority and women-owned businesses. That's really important to us, particularly as it relates to things that don't have to be publicly bid. These are service-related items that we have control over who does that work. And so we really try to focus on creating opportunities in that sector. You know, I'm not sure how many people on the call are aware with Seattle Public Schools, they've entered into a student and community workforce agreement. It's similar to a community workforce agreement that you may be familiar with the city of Seattle. But essentially it makes, there are certain requirements for labor that involve local union representatives that set goals for the project, as you can see on the screen here. Both, you know, distressed zip codes, the BIPOC, women, as well as, it was really important to the district, you know, SPS students or former students or SPS wage earners and households of wage earners, that their projects that are being constructed, not just in Beacon Hill, but all across Seattle, are creating opportunities, workforce opportunities for those groups. I'm just going to spend a minute and talk about the three projects. You guys drive by a couple of these already, or some of you may. Our Kimball Elementary School project has been under construction here since fall of 21. We're finishing up here. Our work finishes in spring of 23. And that particular project has been, all the major packages have been bid out, but there's a lot of those service related scopes left. And so at the end of this presentation, there'll be some contact information of how you can, if you're interested or know somebody who's interested, you know who to talk to and how to get a hold of us. But that's our Kimball Elementary School project. Then we're just getting ready to start. We really haven't broke ground. If you're in that area, you may see some fences and some people with vests walking around, but we're just getting ready to start that project. You know, those of you probably know the existing 1909 historic schoolhouse building will remain, and we're building about a 50,000 square foot, two-story classroom building around it. This particular school is the interim school as they're constructing other projects. For instance, when we're building the Mercer middle school project, which I'll get to next, those kids are going to be going to Van Assalt on that campus during that build. This project, some of the major packages have been bid, but again, there's still a lot of opportunity for employment in particular, and some of the smaller and general services packages. And the last project is Mercer Middle School. So this one is still just in design. We're about, I don't know, 50% through design roughly. It'll start in spring of 2023. It's a brand new school. They're basically demoing the existing campus completely and building a new 176,000 square foot school with all the modern amenities and technologies and program spaces and all of those items that you're seeing in the other schools that are being built around the district. So we're really excited to get that one started. That particular project is going to be a type of wood frame construction called mass timber, which is very environmentally friendly. The district is committed to that. And this project right now, the whole classroom wing is being built in that way. Before I jump into the last page, I just wanted to, I was asked a question in preparation for this meeting regarding what are they doing with building and operations to improve indoor and outdoor air pollution. I did want to touch on that. It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I did get some feedback from the design team on the project. And in particular with Mercer and Van Assalt, and as well as Kimball, I just didn't get a chance to connect with the design team on that project, but most schools are designed in the same way. They both have to meet, the Washington Administrative Code sound requirements. So that's a state requirement. So that's not anything new, but they are very committed to it. On Van Assalt, there was actually a lot of noise studies done on that campus. And what they discovered was really the noise from I-5 was a heavy source of noise. So they've designed the building in a way, the west-facing windows have a higher acoustical property to help with that noise. As I mentioned, both Van Assalt and Mercer are being built with this mass timber construction, which is, like I said, a type of wood construction that's actually very good at absorbing noise. Lastly, on Mercer, there's an outdoor learning area that's on the east side of the school, but they're looking at an alternate to build a kind of a roof and wall structure to help with the noise and also have some amplification that's built into the design of that space. Those will probably end up being alternates, but the team is looking at those items. So Henry, with that, I'll let you do a close.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I noticed there was a question in the chat. I think it came from Maria, and you are asking what we are doing to reach out to Beacon Hill residents about the opportunities. We have scrubbed the list of subcontractors both in the city and outside of the city. We have actually put an asterisk. We've identified the folks that are either in or near the Beacon Hill area. We've contacted them first. There's several firms that are on the list that the city keeps and the list that is at the State Office of Minority and Women's Business Enterprise. So we have likely contacted any quote certified firms that are in Beacon Hill or in the Beacon Hill area. All that aside, if there are people or companies that you know of that would be interested in being involved in this project, I think Brian already talked about the fact that we've got a lot of bid packages that we're going to be putting out. We are happy to talk with those firms and actually do whatever we can to create bid packages that they can potentially be successful on. So the information regarding how to get a hold of us is listed here. As Brian said, we'll be sending this document to we'll be sending the slideshow to Maria for distribution to everyone. The other thing I want to mention is we will come back whenever you feel it is appropriate. And, when we get into, some of these schools a little further, we will be asking to come back. And we want to let you know what we're doing. We are not just here talking about opportunities, but we're also talking about we're welcoming you to contact us if you see something that is not what you think it should be as we are building these schools. We are happy to entertain, and we want to entertain any sort of disruption that we might be creating that we can fix in the community as we're doing this work. I do just real quickly want to mention a couple other things that we're doing that are not directly related to the construction of the schools. You probably saw the banner there on Kimball that was created by the students. We sponsored that. They painted various. I think we're going back to the banner there. As you can see, they've got a lot of their artwork on the fence there. We are actually changing out that banner periodically, putting some new ones up so that all of the kids can get engaged in helping to express themselves artistically as we build this school. Just last Friday we did kind of fun career fair talking about construction trade careers, believe it or not, with elementary school kids. And that was a lot of fun. We had them, hammering nails, and, our electrician took a 4x8 sheet of plywood and built a circuit deal, and they could push different buttons and the circuits would come on, and, lights would come up and everything. That was a real hit. We are also going to be reaching out to students at both Cleveland and Franklin to talk with them about careers in construction. Vicki, who is a almost 40-year educator herself, she has been working with the faculty at all of the schools to come up with ways that we can truly contribute during the several years we're going to be in the neighborhood to the advancement of the students. And lastly, I should mention that that we intend to reach out to residents, including this group, regarding other things that we might be doing in the neighborhood. So we are open to your suggestions about how we can better engage, mostly with the kids in the school, but also with the neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to close and take any questions, and apologize for going a little over, but hopefully the information was useful. Thanks.
Henry, we have about 4 questions for you and Brian. And if these questions don't apply to the construction side, but operations, will, like you said before, that you were going to have some Seattle Public Schools folks with us. The first question is from Betty Jean. Go ahead, Betty Jean.
Hi, I just wanted to check in. When I heard that Mercer was going to be remodeled, I reached out to the school district to point out that there's some metal artwork in the breezeway between the existing buildings. That was a community project that incorporated words of wisdom from various cultures in our community to inspire the students. And I was assured that that artwork would be taken down, stored, and reinstalled. So I just want to make sure that you all are aware of that.
Yeah, I would say based on the status of design, we haven't specifically seen that, but there's been discussions about in our world, what we call the salvage scope. So what are we going to salvage before?
Right.
But I made a note of it. And, you know, I meet with the district every week to talk through the status of design. So I will bring that up to them.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Next question is from Mark Solomon.
Yes, the question I had is, do you know if in the planning process there was a crime prevention through environmental design review done on any of these projects? The reason I ask is in my role as a crime prevention coordinator and certified in CPTED, I'm often asked by architects and planners to review what they have planned to see if there's any red flags that stand out for me in terms of safety and security or potential safety and security issues.
Yeah, that side of it is not something that we're in meetings where there's those topics are being discussed, but we're not. We're more on the construction side. So again, I can ask a question on the details of it, but I can tell you that it's being discussed in the meetings.
Okay.
But I can't answer if the review has been done yet.
Right. And I understand that, you know, being on the construction side, it's already, you know, it's too late. You know, I would actually, I'm looking at a couple of other projects where, you know, these projects aren't going to break ground for at least a year, maybe 2 years. So there's an opportunity to make some tweaks before level hits ground. And so
yeah, absolutely.
other projects that are yet to break ground, I can put my information in the chat that you can share with the designers and architects, because that is a service that, you know, I provide, and it, you know, it's already paid for. So
yeah, thank you.
So Brian and Henry, on those follow-up items, like with the artwork and so forth, you know, please follow up through email. And there is a related question from Megan Slade with regards to safety measures that kind of connects.
Hello.
That.
Can I call you back? I'm on a Zoom meeting.
I'm sorry, Megan?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it sounds like someone's finishing up a call. Yeah, it sounds like this may not be the right place for the question, but there's just a lot of heaviness amongst parents after the recent school shooting, and just wondering if there's anything we could know about what safety measures are being taken for the new schools that are being built.
Yeah, I can tell you, not just with Seattle Public Schools, but we've probably worked with 14 different school districts, and everybody is concerned about it. So that's, and I'm a parent too, so I'm concerned about it. So, but I don't, you know, it's a policy question. There's some infrastructure stuff that I think a lot of people have seen on the new schools, as far as the, you know, how you get or not get access into the school. But as far as operation, that's really a question for the school district.
Brian, we can
yes.
satisfy the operations question. Can you speak to the infrastructure, the physical building itself?
Well, the main thing that we see in most schools is the just the entrance sequence, you know, and that there's the visibility and the checking in process, and, you know, through, you know, electrified hardware where somebody has to be buzzed in. Some schools, you know, and I'm not speaking for Seattle Public Schools here, I'm just speaking for my experience on their projects. That's been the majority of it. There's been other things that are, you know, with window shades and intercom systems, and, you know, how you communicate in the building. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. You're probably looking for some more specific things than that. And those are really things that, you know, like I said, are more policy things with the district.
Okay. Kathy, did you want to make a comment on the Create Academy, or you just wanted this message to get to Henry and to Brian?
Just to get the message to Brian and to Vicky and to Henry, if there is the interest that you say of construction, there are programs. Franklin has a Create Academy, which is construction related, and they work to get students involved in construction and apprenticeships. And there are some wonderful at Seattle Central Community College wood construction programs. They are looking at being on the chopping block. So it'd be really of utmost interest if you would contact those schools, as well as the OSPI, which is State Department of Education, of your interest in maybe looking at a pathway to keep those programs open. The other thing about safety, being a public educator, State Department of Ed is coming out with some new recommendations for safety measures for schools. So that's going to be coming down for next year, and changes will be made in schools if they aren't being made already. That's what I know.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. And I know Seattle Public Schools is they kind of have a CTE. I believe they have a new position that's sort of a CTE coordinator that's trying to leverage the fact that they have $1 billion worth of construction going with this current bond. And so we're Vicky and Cornerstone are very involved in that, but I appreciate the specific information about Franklin and Central Seattle. Those are great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We were hoping, originally Henry mentioned that you may have Seattle Public Schools operations folks on the call also. So if you can share that contact with us, then we can invite them, because the issues of safety and security is really present among the parents. So that would be great. Other than that, if you can take down your slideshow so we can give you a nice appreciative clap, that would be great. All right, everybody, let's give them some kudos for coming and thank you us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Next time we hope to, if you can send more specific information about the construction of the buildings and where it is, what design, why you're changing it, that would be great. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we're going to move to the second item. As you well know, the Garden House, yay, has been bought by Historic Seattle, and it feels better that it's with community. So I would like to introduce Kai Kelly, who's here. And Kai, are you the person presenting, or is the person from Reluda Architects?
Yeah, Matt's here with us, but I just want to thank everyone for hosting us. And before I sort of turn it over to Matt, I wanted to introduce Naomi West. She's on the call, our Director of Philanthropy and Engagement, a key member of our team. And I want to thank everyone on this call. Many of you are instrumental that we are here tonight, to be completely blunt and honest. Without the community support, this wouldn't have been possible. We would not be here. So I just want to recognize that and say thank you to all those that have shown us support and have played such an active role in what we're trying to do here, which is all about saving an important place for the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Kai. I'll share my screen in a second, but first I want to also ask Alex Reluda to introduce Reluda Architects. We're working with Historic Seattle on this project. Alex, could you just give a quick introduction of Reluda Architects?
Great, I'll make it pretty quick, Matt, so that you can present. Hi, everybody. Alex Reluda, president of Reluda Architects. We're an architectural design firm located in historic Pioneer Square, where we've been there since '96. And Beacon Hill is very familiar to us. We're just now completing the renovation of the Jefferson Community Center. So you can see the construction fence around the community center has been removed and hopefully opening up that soon. The Garden House is in a neighborhood where actually I grew up and very familiar with. So it's a pleasure to be working with you and with that, and you know, to gain community confidence that we're, you know, whatever we do is the right thing for not just the Garden House, but for the community. So with that, Matt, go right ahead.
Okay. Maria, is it possible for me to share my screen? I'm getting a message that host disabled participant screen sharing.
So Amy or Deirdre, if you can, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay.
You're good to go, Matt.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we've already had introductions from Kai Kelly from Historic Seattle and Alex Reluda from Reluda Architects. I'm Matt Purvis, the project architect with Reluda Architects. And just to kind of restate Historic Seattle's mission, their mission is saving meaningful places to foster lively communities. And we will aim to do that with the Garden House. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Garden House since it's such an important part of the North Beacon Hill neighborhood. And I'd like to start off with a little bit of background on the site. What we now know as Beacon Hill is pretty centrally located in the traditional Duwamish territory between villages on the Duwamish River and in Lake Washington. In the 19th century, the land was taken by the US government and transferred to settlers and subdivided. And then in 1886, the original structure, which you can see up here in the upper right, was built. It was a private house for the Turner family. And at the time, it was the first large and kind of ornate house in a fairly undeveloped area. You can see on this map from 1894, here's the current Garden House. There was very little there, and it was just within the city boundaries. And in fact, the city had just incorporated Beacon Hill and begun to expand into this area in 1890 with the extension of the Seattle streetcar. The area continued to be developed through the 20th century. This is a real estate map from 1936, where they've mapped out different grades of security throughout Seattle. The Garden House is shown here with a red dot, and you can see it's on the edge of this blue zone, which they've defined as still desirable, but it's bordering on a yellow zone, which is defined as definitely declining. And just right around it is this red zone, which they've labeled as hazardous. And this is literally a map of how the neighborhood was redlined in the mid 20th century. And how this was used was, it was used by real estate companies and lenders to keep people of color from buying property in what they determined were desirable areas, and to force people of color into the less desirable areas. And at around the same time that this map was published, the Garden House was sold to the Jefferson Park Ladies Improvement Club, which was the first of many community organizations to use the building. And in the 1970s, it became a garden club. And as Many of you know it was most recently used by Beacon Arts. And the neighborhood has continued to develop and grow, become more dense and more diverse around the garden house. And it's also facing pressure from gentrification that threatens to push out some of that diversity. So now I'm gonna turn it back to Kai Kelly to give you a little bit about the project goals for the garden house. Kai, can you speak about the goals?
Thanks, Matt. You know, this, as many of you know, has really been sort of a natural evolution of a project for historic Seattle since really 2016. It really started as an advocacy effort. We were concerned that it was going to be torn down. We were concerned that some legal action was taken that would sort of put it into a precarious position as far as sort of a demolition threat. We certainly moved through a great advocacy campaign and interaction with community members. It then really turned into an education program for us and really tried to, you know, educate people about why it's important, why it's worth saving. And then it really sort of evolved into this active real estate program and opportunity. So as Matt said in the first slide, we save meaningful places to foster lively communities. And I know for certain, since I've been on this call for about 45 minutes, this is certainly a lively community. We've really been partnering important places with important people that care about their communities. We've been doing that as an organization for nearly 50 years now. You know, on this call, I've heard that you care about civic engagement, you care about being active and participatory in civic affairs, honoring others, you care about kids, you care about the environment, you care about sustainability. We're just really excited to return this meaningful place back to this lively community. So as the project goals state, we really want to ensure that there's an equitable benefit here. We want to include communities that have been harmed or excluded, as Matt showed on the previous slide, and to restore, you know, community ownership and community pride and community use of the space. Ultimately, the building and the site all will be developed and rethought and activated with input from the community and activated by the tenants that we want to engage with and community partners that we want to ultimately be the stewards of this great opportunity. So this is really early, as you can tell, but we're really excited to really start. This is the first of a several step process for community engagement. So we're really thrilled to be able to start talking about that. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks, Kai. So I'll talk a little bit about the tenant spaces. And as Kai mentioned, we are going to be doing some restoration and upgrades of these spaces, and they're not in bad shape, as you can see from the photo. So starting with the interior space, there are potentially 3 tenant spaces in the garden house. The first floor is the largest of the 3, almost 2,000 square feet. And it includes a large open space, which you can see pictured here. It includes a kitchen, which is not technically a commercial kitchen because it doesn't meet the ventilation requirements of a commercial range, but it is a pretty large kitchen with lots of workspace and appliances. It would make a great community kitchen. And there are also 2 restrooms that are on the main floor as a part of this space, which are being upgraded to meet ADA requirements. And the entire first floor space is going to be ADA accessible once we're done with our renovations. The second and third potential tenant spaces are on the upper floor. So those are not wheelchair accessible, but there are 2 office spaces. There's a west-facing office that overlooks 15th that you can see in this picture. And then there's a north-facing office with in-suite kitchen and bathroom kind of towards the north side and around the back of the house. The building sits between 2 nicely landscaped green spaces. There's a north lawn with a gazebo and south of the building, there's a 100-year-old pear orchard, which is actually part of the historic preservation of the site, is preserving this historic pear orchard. And these outdoor spaces will be managed by the tenants, likely the tenants of the main floor. And there's an agreement in place with Seattle Parks to allow for some limited daily public use hours of these green spaces. So the tenant of the first floor space will need to create a reservation system to allow for public use by reservation of these park spaces. And they will also be able to collect fees for those spaces for rentals. And we want them to create a fee structure that's based on the type of use of the space that contributes towards our community-oriented goals with the project, while also making the project financially sustainable for the lessee. And there are 6 core requirements that we're looking for in a organization or multiple organizations to lease the building from Historic Seattle. Number 1, to demonstrate a history of curating community-focused activities. Number 2, to demonstrate the ability to pay rent. Now, you might be wondering how much the rent will be, and we have not set a number yet, but it will be a reasonable rate for community organizations. And Historic Seattle is not trying to make a big profit off of it, but they do need it to be financially sustainable and self-sustaining. And then number 3, for the tenant requirements, manage and maintain indoor and outdoor community-focused space. Number 4, provide financials and a business plan to demonstrate the viability of the organizations that are using the space. Number 5, obtain and pay for renters insurance. And number 6, provide access for a wide variety of community interests and uses, applying a lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And this is really an important goal of the project. And in a large way, it's the driver behind the outreach work that we're doing currently. So we currently have 3 upcoming events. We're holding these events to seek input from the community on how they'd like the space to be used, and to also reach potential lessees for the space, organizations or individuals. The first organization is coming up, or event is coming up this Saturday. That's the Beacon Arts Street Festival. We'll be there at a table from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. With some images and information about the project. And we'll be seeking suggestions from attendees about how they'd like the space to be used. And we'll also be gathering contact information from whoever's interested to provide further input on the project. Number 2, the second event is a community visioning meeting, which will be held at the Garden House. That's Saturday, June 25th at 10 a.m. And the third event is a prospective tenant open house on Wednesday, July 27th at 5:30 p.m. So I imagine there might be some interest in those events where we're going to be publicizing them to various organizations and throughout the community. If you're interested in registering for either of the second 2 events, the community visioning meeting on Saturday the 25th or the tenant open house on July 27th, please email Naomi West with Historic Seattle. You can see her email address here, naomiw@historicseattle.org. And we'll also be conducting email surveys. So everybody that we can come into contact with and engage with and get contact information from throughout this process, throughout these 3 events. We'll be following up with an email survey to make sure we are able to capture all of their feedback. So we'll also be compiling a project list. And if you're interested in being on our project contact list, go ahead and email Naomi your contact information. And I'll also be available. Here's my email, matt@ReludaArchitects. I'll also be available to answer some questions about the project. But that wraps up our presentation for now. Are there any questions from the audience?
Matt, can you take down your screen so that we can see folks easier? All right, I'm looking at the gallery, looking at folks. Any questions?
You're welcome to enter them in the chat too. I see Naomi's posted a link with information about the events at the Garden House in June and July.
I do have a question. The term development was used. What does that mean in terms of a vision for developing the Garden House?
I wanted to mute him when he said that, Maria. He doesn't mean development. He meant rehabilitation, restoration, preservation, not putting in townhouses on the orchards or the lot, not that kind of development. Community-oriented redevelopment of the use of space, but not development of the site.
Thank you. I can now breathe.
Yes, I had that one too. I was like, no.
Maria, you always keep us honest. We were going to try to slide in some, 4-story townhouses around the Garden House and tear down the pear trees.
Well, I know Alex. I can get to him.
Yes, you do.
No, I really appreciate the clarification, Naomi. It's just a beautiful space. And we say in Beacon Hill Council, that is our civic engagement moms that got that building. So we have such deep honor and respect for the feeling of that building also. Looking around, any questions? Checking in on chat box.
Any other sort of points of clarification or anything else? I mean, it was sort of like a quick dump of info. Anything else, maybe with site or house plans or anything like that?
There's a question in the chat box. Dee, can you go ahead, please?
Good question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Could you just clarify the whole, there's so many entities involved here. So between Historic Seattle, Parks and Rec, and then whoever the tenants are going to be and who the management is going to be of the Garden House, how does that all fit together?
That's a brilliant question, Dee. So the backstory, if you want to know, is that we were able to receive a bulk of the funding to purchase the Garden House from Conservation Futures tax levy money, which is county money. Many of you know this, county money that's used to strip development rights off of open space to preserve open space for community use. So we were successful in a partnership with Seattle Parks and Rec to apply for that money. It was close to $2 million. We were successful with that application. We received the funds. Let me rephrase that. Seattle Parks will receive the funds. They will then use those funds to purchase an easement from Historic Seattle, stripping the development rights off the north and the south parcels that surround the Garden House. Seattle Parks will have no future responsibility owning, maintaining, managing anything as it involves the site. It'll be Historic Seattle as the owner of the house and the garden, working with the tenant to figure out a management agreement, figure out how we, operate the site jointly for community use. So it's a little complicated, but in the scheme of sort of publicly minded restoration projects. This one's pretty simple. It's a lot of money that came through from the county, coming through the city to Historic Seattle to purchase. Does that answer, Dee? What, does that provide a little bit of clarity?
Yeah, that does a lot. Thank you.
Sure.
So let me ask one more thing. The
Mhm.
tenants will pay Historic Seattle.
Correct.
We'll have a contract with Historic
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah, you know, we our most recent project, for many of you may know this already, is a building in the Central District called Washington Hall. And it's on the corner of 14th and Fur. We bought it in 2009. And we worked with community partners, community organizations who are really sort of the heart and the soul of the building. We own the building. They're the tenants of the building or anchor partners within the building. They pay us rent and they curate their own shows and open it to the community. And they provide sort of the connective tissue with community. We're trying to improve on that model here, right? But it's the same basic model that Historic Seattle owns the property, and we'll work with, you know, and it doesn't have to be a singular tenant; it could be multiple tenants. Work with tenants who will have leases with Historic Seattle, and the tenant will, you know, curate and manage and operate the house.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Looks like Christina has a hand raised. Christina, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I understand the rentable space. There is space in the basement and there is an attic. Do you have visions for use of that space, rehabilitation or storage or any particular use at this time?
We want to use every square inch, not square foot, square inch of the house. As long as it's occupiable or usable, we want to use it. Obviously, there's, you know, some limitation with access into the attic,
Right.
and access to a certain extent down to the basement. But we want to really try to utilize every square inch in the house for community use. You know, we don't have, as an organization, a need to have any sort of footprint organizationally at the house. This is all sort of community-driven opportunity. And same goes for the site, quite honestly, and the parking. And so it's a large 18,000 square foot site that all can be activated in a really community-minded way.
So I understood you said that parks would have no day-to-day relationship, like maintaining. So is it up to the community to maintain the grounds?
That's another great question. We have, well, we haven't thought through the details of how the grounds will actually be maintained. We have close to 10 properties throughout Seattle. So we have a head groundskeeper on staff who can provide some guidance. We also have contracts with, you know, landscape companies that come in and can do that sort of thing. If community members want to help, let's talk. We're really early, so all things are possible here.
Thank you.
Hi, any more questions?
While we're quickly on the grounds, we are close to finalizing the details with Seattle Parks around the use. So right now, and Matt mentioned this, we have the park, as we're calling it, the open space, will be open to the public 8 hours a day. But for private uses, we can reserve the grounds 15 times per month. So it's going to provide a lot of opportunity for private use, complementary use with the house. And we're finalizing those details with parks, but we wanted to really keep it simple and accessible. We didn't want to have a financial burden and hurdle for community to use the space, but we also wanted to provide an opportunity for the tenant or tenants to have weddings, to have, you know, have private events, have things that can help generate income that'll help subsidize and support the organizations that are providing, you know, community-minded content within the space. Ultimately, we didn't want to have parks. We didn't want the parks reservation system. We didn't want parks fee structure. We didn't want to, this is up to us to decide, right? And so that's the whole goal for complementing, using the complement in a complementary way, the grounds with the house.
And then who would be the person in charge of monitoring the grounds so that people don't set up encampments?
That's another great question. We're working through those details right now. What we wanted to do with parks was, again, not have parks involved in that type of monitoring. We wanted to own that. And I sort of say royal we, we'll figure out whether it be select tenants in the house or Historic Seattle. We'll figure out a way to sort of jointly figure out how to manage and make sure that site's secure and safe and open and closed to the public so that it's not a burdensome and doesn't become a problem for the community. So, I mean, one of the things we're going to start looking at pretty quickly as soon as we get through some of the community engagement work with Alex and Matt, site security. How can we provide better site security to make sure that the users of the space are safe and feel comfortable and that we can close up at night and feel like everything will be safe and secure when we come back in the morning.
Well, it looks like a good stopping place. I'm looking around the room to see if there's any more questions and not seeing any. Not seeing anything in the chat box either. All I can do is offer that when you're ready to do your survey, please feel free to send it to us so we can send it to our mailing list. So that would be a good thing. And the Beacon Arts Street Fair is running every second Saturday of the month. And there's also quite a number of other events that are happening. At Othello, there is a fair that's going to be coming down there. And then there's 3. We have Vietnamese residents also. So the Friends of Little Saigon will be happening. About half of our population is Chinese and Asians. So the Chinatown ID fairs is also a good place to catch some of our Beacon Hill neighbors.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's give him a wonderful round of applause. Make that place beautiful and useful for us, please.
Right back at you.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's go back to the agenda. Let's see, the next item is the Pacific Public Development Authority, the use of the smaller historic buildings. Sometimes you call them cottages. So we have Katie with us, and Katie Saunders, are you going to introduce Jeremy? You're going to head it off?
Happy to introduce Jeremy, and Jeremy's going to be leaving the show tonight. So I'm just sort of sitting in as a working on this project, also a Beacon Hill resident. So really nice to see all the conversations tonight, but I'll hand it over to Jeremy.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Maria, and everyone for letting us have this opportunity to talk to you all about the Pacific Hospital Preservation and Development Authority quarters buildings. Is it possible that I could share my screen here? I promise I will be brief, as I know I only have 5 minutes.
Give me a second, Jeremy.
Absolutely. And a little bit of background about myself. So I'm Jeremy Walker. I'm the Senior Project Management Analyst with Commerce. We've been tasked with the contract management of a capital needs assessment for 7 of the buildings that are on the PHPDA campus. And let's see here, I should be able to share my screen. Are you all able to see that now?
Yep.
Perfect. And so I'm just going to go real briefly around what the capital needs assessment is and what we really want to talk with you and make sure that you're all aware of. So Commerce, we strengthen communities with state-funded dollars, and we are also a pass-through agency for federal funding. So a lot of the COVID funding that has come through our state passes through Commerce. And these are just some of the many activities that we do. The main point I want to make tonight is that our community engagement has really just started with this series of projects. There's been no decision on the use of these buildings. There's also been no determination as to how much these buildings will cost based on their use. So we're inviting everybody to a community virtual open house, June 14th. That's this next week from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And Katie Saunders has been really great at facilitating and leading that effort as one of the subcontractors on this project. The primary contractor for this first phase of the work really in the contract needs is SHKS Architects. They are local to Seattle, and they've done similar kind of historical preservation type efforts. And so there's also going to be translation services available in Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Spanish. And Katie also put together some materials through some of her contacts in Tagalog and also Somali. So we know that that's not every single language. One of these days, Commerce will have all of the resources lined up to provide every single type of translation. That's the dream, but we're not there yet. In terms of the buildings, I just wanted to give a quick orientation. You probably are all quite familiar with this area, but we're really focused on the south end of the PHPDA campus. And there in the pink purple dotted lines, you can see the buildings that we are referring to. And some of these are kind of a duplex slash townhome style. They were originally part of the Navy Hospital, which is what this campus was. And they were designed originally for residential. So the big quarters 10 building, that was primarily for nurses. And then you had quarters building 5, which was for the general. And then you had the other buildings that were primarily for doctors and surgeons. Through the years, those houses have gone on to serve other needs, in particular serving space for organization. And they have had some upgrades done to them over the time, but all within the historical preservation guidelines. And so a big part of our capital needs assessment is looking at the safety of these buildings, looking at earthquake, all of those technical aspects of, are these buildings still safe to put people in? And the work that we're focusing on right now, it started December 1st when Commerce started to plan this work. And it's been going all the way to June 30th with our first report of what are those uses. So this community virtual house, along with all of the other feedback that we have received to date, will be part of this first initial report on what those uses could be, and also what those potential capital costs could be. This does not go into operational costs or operational needs at this time. Now, starting July 11th this year, going until potentially June of 2023, there's an operations assessment that will be led. And part of that operations assessment is looking and focusing on homeless youth, so supportive homeless youth housing, because there are a lot of different needs, a lot of different technical needs when it comes to supporting those types of vulnerable folks. But that does not necessarily exclude all the other uses that these buildings may be for. And so I hope that as one of the project managers, along with Kim Justice, who also works in Commerce, that we can be primary contacts for all of you in the community moving forward over the next year in engaging with you and answering questions that you may have. We also plan in this next series of assessments to create a more of a community engagement plan. So we have one meeting right now on the books. We will very likely have others put together after this next phase launches. I just wanted to quickly give you a visualization of all the different types of capital needs and technical work. I'm not going to go into all of them in nitty-gritty detail, but it is a lot. I want to point out the orange though, because Katie Saunders is here, and a lot of that work has been done around trying to build out the community and accessibility, especially in terms of language. Some of those conversations have been really fruitful, and we're hoping to be able to expand on that with your help and engagement. We really want that to be a strong partnership with the community. As far as the types of uses of the buildings that we've heard of to date, we have office space, behavioral health, developmentally disabled community housing, family-centered substance use disorder recovery housing, group homes, long-term care, recovery residences, and state-operated living alternatives. We also have youth experiencing homelessness, but again, that's going to be more of a focus group that comes out of this next legislative proviso. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie here to talk a little bit about her social equity analysis, which is a part of this initial work and is a part of the community engagement. Katie, do you mind speaking for 30 seconds on this slide?
Sure can, yeah, and I know we're looking to get folks and we're running long on the agenda, but I wanted to include this slide just to demonstrate to the community that we are including an equity lens as part of this study and looking at the context around in Beacon Hill and around in the neighborhoods around, and recognizing that per the City of Seattle's Racial and Social Equity Composite Index, there are communities of highest disadvantage. So the message here is just that the project is looking at equity, social equity, and considering it thoughtfully as we look towards future uses for these buildings.
Thanks, Katie. And then just in terms of the other considerations, we also know that PHPDA, they have their own strategic plan and own comprehensive plan that they are working through to try to make and integrate some of the other major projects that are happening on the north end of the lot. So working with them along with all the other stakeholders, including all of you, to make sure that we're having a cohesive, productive, and energetic campus. And that's really it. This is just a repetitive slide. I'll open it up to any questions if we have time.
If you can take down your slide, I'm going to recap for folks. Okay, there's a lot that was said. Right now, they're checking if the buildings are safe enough to have people. But it's really the next phase that people need to get into, because there's a budget proviso from the state that basically says that they want to check if the building can be used for very specific purposes in terms of some kind of a housing for certain vulnerable populations. So Katie, I know you're gonna, both of you, I know you're gonna give us the information on when community engagement is gonna happen. So that'll be great.
Yeah, I posted the link to the meeting in the chat. So that's the meeting next Tuesday night, June 14th. And so the Zoom link is out and we've been sending out invitations. Yeah. We will have flyers in the neighborhood. We're gonna have flyers available at the street fair this weekend that was mentioned earlier. So you'll be able to hopefully see flyers in there, post going on in social media. So keep an eye out, but you have the link available in the chat. We encourage folks to share the link. We would definitely want to spread the word about that this meeting is happening. And as Jeremy mentioned, it is the first meeting, but not the last. We are early in the process and there will be additional engagement as we move forward with the project. So this is not the one and only meeting by any stretch of the imagination, but encourage folks to attend to get a better understanding of what this first phase of the project is looking at.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Let's give them a hand. And we're gonna flip over our agenda so we can get Evelyn Chow in. Evelyn works for our district representative, Tammy Morales. Evelyn, are you able to come on board so we can see you? There you go.
Yeah,
go ahead,
absolutely. All right, yeah, I'll make this a little quick. Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Evelyn. I am the new, or I guess not so new, district director for Councilmember Morales. I've been in the office for a little over 3 months now. And Maria, thank you so much for inviting me. Maria invited me tonight to talk about the Seattle Within Reach initiative that our office has been working on. So we've been working with a policy work group that's comprised of about 30 plus organizations, many of which are based in the South End, and they represent a lot of groups around like community development, anti-displacement, arts, climate justice, racial equity, et cetera. And I think Maria invited me to talk about just kind of what the initiative that we're working on is. So it really sort of kicked off with the launch of the comprehensive plan engagement that the city has been doing. We wanted to make sure, obviously, that folks in District 2 in our district in the South End, but also the whole city are prepared for when that comes into more public conversations in the next couple of years as the plan is being revised. And so internally, we've been working with our policy group around the objectives of number one, expanding neighborhood services. So expanding access to essential services and getting that language, amended into the comprehensive plan, which we have submitted our amendments to, but including, grocery stores, healthcare facilities, childcare, healthy foods, cultural anchors, parks and fitness facilities. Our office is also working on an affordability partnership to increase opportunities for affordable homes in especially historically exclusionary areas, and opening doors for partnerships between, affordable housing, social housing, and private housing developers. And then a couple more things around, community ownership and tenant ownership. I don't know if anyone here got a chance to see the past few panels that we've been holding. They're similar to like the policy lunch and learns that have come out of the city of Seattle in the past few years, but we've held around 3 panels. The 4th one is coming up this month. The first one was kind of an introduction to land use planning and the comprehensive plan. We had some community partners like the Seattle Planning Commission, Puget Sound Stage, and the American Institute of Architects talk. And I can link all of this in the chat as well for folks who want to catch up on the panels. The second one that we did was around community development and how to build equitable neighborhoods. We had folks from, or Miguel Maestas from El Centro de la Raza joined us, as well as 2 representatives from our sister city in Nantes, France. And then our most recent one this past month was on mobility, accessibility, and safety. I don't know if, in May, we saw a lot of, traffic collisions and serious injuries and fatalities in District 2, especially. And so we had folks from Seattle Neighborhood Greenways. It was supposed to be KL Shannon actually on our panel, but she had to drop off last minute, and Clara Cantor joined us. We had Anna Zivarts from Disability Rights Washington, and one other person whose name is not coming to me right now. I will send that information in the chat, but that's kind of just a high level, I guess, overview of the work that we've been trying to do to, get the word out around not only the comprehensive plan, but for, especially this upcoming budget cycle with the city, how, we want to prioritize in the budget around building more well-resourced and equitable neighborhoods. So thank you, Maria, again, for inviting me to talk really quick tonight about the work that our office is doing around this initiative of building a Seattle where everyone can, live, work, and play within reach. I'm happy to give more details. I can be on for a few more minutes, and then I have to hop off to another meeting, unfortunately. But let me drop my email and some links in the chat for folks to follow up on. Sorry, that was a little bit fast, but I'm happy to repeat anything if anyone needs anything reset.
I have a quick question. The meetings all appear to be during the day when people who work cannot attend. I mean, Seattle within reach, but the meetings aren't within reach.
Absolutely. This is something that we've been working on internally as well. We're setting up non-daytime as well as weekend hours, and hopefully getting accommodations in those. So please stay tuned. We'll be announcing those shortly.
Evelyn, just to
Yes.
recap for everybody, these meetings are really important because they're the foundation for Tammy's policy and advocacy work. Is that my understanding? Now, I'm a little bit confused because I saw the word coalition. And can you explain that to us? Why it's being called a coalition as opposed to a work group?
I think we have been seeing, especially with the comprehensive plan amendments that we submitted, a lot of this work as sort of a campaign. And we especially know that, even though we had submitted the amendments, they won't be reviewed until, the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year. And so in terms of like a long-term visioning, like we do see this as a coalition of folks who can come together, but it is, in essence, more of a work group internally as of right now. And in terms of an external manifestation, especially with the panels that we've been hosting, I think it can be seen as more of a work coalition.
Yeah, it just makes me a little bit nervous because we haven't always been on page with where Tammy wants to go.
Yeah.
And it's really important for us to catch up really and get on page. Because like I said to her when I saw her at the Columbia Market, I think the what conceptually, I think a lot of people are in agreement. It's the how that's implemented that impacts our communities. So maybe if we can get a kind of like a catch-up study session so that we can know and we can go and look at what the submitted amendments are, because sometimes the technical language doesn't ring as to what you're trying to solve.
For sure.
Maybe that's a fundamental thing. And we'll talk about this also with our, because I was just really mindful when we talk about it during the board. Are we joining a coalition or are we expressing what we believe is needed for our neighborhood? Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does a lot. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, I'm happy to set up another meeting with Devin, our policy director, in the office to talk through. Definitely, like I don't anticipate everyone in the work group, has to align, word for word with each other. I mean, it's a group of, over 30 orgs. I think things that we have worked on building consensus and, group understanding around our core values of, repairing the harm, democratizing power, and preparing for the 7th generation. And so ways that we can express like, those values in the work that we're doing is really important. And I'm happy to send along a draft core values document. I'm still working on finalizing it. We had our previous meeting. I don't know were you in there, Maria, last week?
Not this last one. I
Okay.
attended the one where my Estes was. Okay,
yes,
that's going to work out really well. And if you could also provide the submitted amendments so we have a baseline
yes,
to
yeah,
go. Okay. All right,
absolutely.
we'll talk about it during our council meeting. And we just want a community to weigh in. Is this something that you guys want us to pursue? This is about our future, so that we can get on board and say, how do we influence that picture of the future? So I'm just looking around to see if there's any comments from folks. This is so exciting. I know you're tired. And thank you, Evelyn, for staying. Well, that's a comisa. I saw a comisa.
All right. Thank you so much for having me again. Happy to follow up via email. Sorry, I have to hop into another meeting right now. But take care, everyone, and have a good.
Okay, community, is this something you want us to pursue? Hello?
I don't know what she was talking about.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Let me go back and recap because I think this is a very important piece.
I mean, I know there were those meetings. I haven't been able to look at them yet, but I don't know what that means to me as just a regular person living on Beacon Hill. I don't know what the impact is for me.
So this is what I'm going to say. That's why my ear perked up when I started seeing them. So there's a Growth Management Act that the state puts out that basically talks about density. It also talks about what makes communities livable or what we call concurrency. Trees, roads, schools, blah, blah, blah. But those things are not required. There's a dynamic tension happening in Seattle, which is rapid buildup of developments to accommodate people who increased population. The comprehensive plan, the city of Seattle is going to modify it next year. So the neighborhoods are working on it now. What I heard from Evelyn is Tammy has already submitted amendments. That's the first. And then she has this learning group of 30 organizations, and that they represent various sectors, and also for us as Beacon Hill Council, in a way being the voice for 40,000 people of 100,000 in District 2. So it behooves on us to do some weighing in. Otherwise, we're going to wind up pushing back piece by piece by piece. So I'll give you an example of what I heard from one of the learning sessions. And I think Lisa, you and I, or Megan and I were in the same session. It was about in lieu fees, because our issue that we sent to Tammy is that MHA, the city only requires the developers to put in 1/3 of the cost of building a unit into the in lieu fee, so they don't have to build the unit on the site. The two people out of the three on the panel, one from Chicago and one from France, Sisters City Nuns, both of them said they got rid of the in lieu fee, because then for us, the implication is potentially resegregation, and the fact that we want 100% of the cost of the fee. So to me, that's a direct impact on us. So it's kind of complicated. It'll be interesting, because there was another one where they were talking about the 15-minute walkable neighborhood, which has implications for cars. And we are a residential neighborhood, so we have to be able to say, well, people need to get to work. How is that going to work out if only electric vehicles and buses and bikes are allowable? So we got to get engaged to understand what's going on. And Catherine, that's a good thing to say. So Catherine is basically saying it's like the biggest thing facing us as a neighborhood. The speaker was vague in general, so we will benefit hugely from the council staying on top of this. So I guess, Catherine, you're saying, get involved. The council should get involved somehow. And we probably need to go and get neighbors beyond the council. Hi, Catherine. So good to see you. Lisa or Megan, do you want to comment?
I haven't attended any of those meetings, but just to clarify, this would be us deciding whether to join, and we would be organization number 31 on the workforce or coalition or whatever it is that's being called.
What I would recommend is that we decide if we want to join as part of the learning group to develop our own recommendations. And second, if we want to be in coalition or not. Because I don't want, again, this is just from my past experience, to become a coalition is far deeper than just throwing everybody on a common interest. To me, that's, and we as Beacon Hill Council have come up, we appealed the Mandatory Housing Affordability Act because of the issues, and we worked really hard to fix it. Case in point, the MHA did not have home ownership, and we approached Councilmember Lorena Gonzalez, who approached Teresa Mosquera, who's the advocate for this, to include home ownership. And we need to know where the money is, right? There's a lot of development in North Beacon Hill. Where are the fees? Or where are the fees for overall city of Seattle, and where is the money getting spent? So there's a lot of questions about that. So yeah, it's big, but it's like, how do we influence the rules that are going to impact the lives of the residents? And it isn't just the council. Anyone could actually help be part of the study group within council. So I'm looking at you, Anne, because I know you've done analytical work before. And this may be a way that you want to get involved. And Catherine, if you have energy to get involved. I know Myra and I got toasted over doing the appeal. That was a lot of work. And the more educated we are, the more we can speak the language, because Evelyn was saying a lot in what she said, but it was so dense. If we're not, used to listening to that languaging, we're going to miss out. Hey, Jerry, Christina, Dee, Rita, Amelia, Susan, Mark. Any
Oh,
thoughts?
I was just going to say, Maria, I'm looking at the time, and I know Lieutenant Martin's on the call. Can we get that public safety update?
Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant Martin. My apologies. I emailed Amy, and I didn't get a confirmed speaker. I didn't realize it was you. My apologies.
No problem.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name's Ann Martin. I'm the operations lieutenant at the South Precinct. Thank you for having me. Captain Moss was not able to attend, but I'm here in his stead. I've talked to Maria a couple times, but it's so nice to see you kind of in person. So I want to talk about what some of the current things are going on at the South Precinct. To be honest with you, in the last couple of days, we were dealing with some threats at a couple of the schools. One of them, Franklin. One of them was Aki Karosi. It took our patrol to be in the area. Our community outreach team actually has had some conversations and involvement, as well as our follow-up detectives to try to, see if we could chase down the person that were making these threats. So that's taken some of our resources and our attention in the last couple of days. There's been a little increase overall through the city in carjackings. And there was one last week at 15th and Atlantic. And as I recall, the gentleman had just walked out to his car to get something out of it. And, they happened to be cruising by and they took his car from him. So I just wanted to make sure all the residents know they really need to be heads up when they're around their cars, in their, walking to their cars, those kinds of things. We did see those people later caper up in the north end, and that vehicle was recovered, but we're very concerned because the suspects had, a couple guns with them. And with that said, one of the main focuses in the South Precinct is our violent crime emphasis. We have extra officers coming in on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings through to the morning hours, and their focus is our violent crime emphasis. So if we have a shots fired, if we have a carjacking, if we have some kind of an assault with a weapon, any serious thing, those officers head for that. And they've been very, very, very helpful augmenting those patrol resources. We're still able to come up to minimums. I know that you all have heard we've lost a lot of officers. That's still the incident. We're not getting more officers quickly. We're going to have to figure out how to live with this. But currently, right now, we're coming up on our minimums, and we are, meeting our basic public safety 911 needs. I'm not sure how many of you have had to call 911 recently, but that's one of the things that was removed from the police department. Our 911 center is now a department by itself. We no longer have input or even influence as to how they operate. I know that the non-emergency number that we've been talking about for years, Mark has probably given it out hundreds and thousands of times, the 625 or the 52, well, I can't even remember it, but the non-emergency number, I don't think that's even getting answered anymore. And in some cases, when people are calling 911, they're really not getting the responses that they were used to and that they expect. but we're trying to deal with it. We're trying to work through that, and we're here to, help in any way we can. I did want to point out two things. So, the Seattle University has been doing a public safety study, and they just released their report from 2021. I'm going to put that in the chat so you can look that up later. It's a pretty interesting study. You guys should look at that. And then the other piece I want to talk about is encampment. The only piece that the Seattle Police Department has on encampments anymore is providing safety. The mayor's office has chosen to be the overseer here, and they use different data sets to decide what encampments they're going to look at and in what order. But they say that if community members have an encampment that they believe is associated with crime, please use the Find It, Fix It app and send that to them so they can make a better decision on what encampments to work on next. That is all I have. Maria, did you have any specific questions?
I don't know if you heard Megan's question with regards to the shootings at the safety of our kids in the schools. And
are you talking about the Texas?
Yeah, what actions maybe the Seattle SPD is considering for our schools to keep our kids safer?
Well, we work closely with the Seattle Public School Security, and anytime there's an issue, we're there for them, not only with our detectives, but with our officers on the street, and we're working with them to work through issues. As far as our response to any kind of active shooter, the Seattle Police Department's been training for that for years. I'm very confident. I mean, seriously, at our street skills every year, the officers train. What are we going to do if we hear shots down the hallway? Do we have any dynamic intelligence? Do we go in search mode? Are we in automatic mode? I'm confident that the Seattle Police Department would have a different response than probably what you saw in Texas. We train, we go in as a team. We have duties. We know what we're trained to do. So I'm reasonably certain that we would respond quickly. We would not wait for any commander or any SWAT element to go in if there was active shooting at the time. That's how we're prepared.
Questions, folks? All right, I'm not seeing any.
I just have one, the link that or the thing you put in the chat about the survey from the school, it doesn't show up as a link. I'm wondering if you could do that again.
If I just knew what I was doing. Yeah, let me see if I can grab it again.
You can also email it to us and we can get it out.
Okay, let me do that because I do not know how to do that. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure I can get back to you guys. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that.
All right.
No worries, LT. I can actually forward the survey and the notification about the community conversations. I have those emails and I can forward it to the Beacon Hill group, and then maybe we can post that on our Facebook page or to our mailing list. So I can cover that. Okay.
That'll be great. Okay. It's about 8:26, so boy, we've got a super packed agenda. Thank you, everybody. Please, Beacon Hill Council board members, please stay on the call. Before that, let's just give Lieutenant Martin a appreciation, please. Thank you so much for coming, and
you're welcome.
Tough, unpredictable times, but hang in there. Okay. All right, everybody, I'm going to say good night. Let's turn off the recording. So, Susan, welcome. Great to see you. Susan is the head of